since I've done one of these How To Monday videos, but I am back and I am excited to show you guys today how to do Judy's Magic Cast On, which is a cast on you can use for the top of a toe-up sock that is seamless. It's pretty easy to do, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it on a magic loop, which is one long circular needle. I'm going to show you how to do it on 2 circular needles and also on double pointed needles. So hopefully this video is helpful regardless of how you like to knit your socks. So let's change camera angles and we'll jump right into it. So here's the toe of a sock that I knit, where you can see I use Judy's Magic Cast On. So if I stretch it out, the cast on is running right here. I think it's this row right here, but you can't even really see it. It's invisible and it looks like a row of knitting. So it's great for things like the top of a sock where you want it to be finished and you don't want to see your cast on. So I'm going to start by showing you how I do the Judy's Magic Cast on one long circular needle. So I've got both ends of my circular needle pointing out over here. You always want your needle tips pointing out toward the left, and I'm holding my yarn in my left hand. So I'm holding it as if I'm going to do a long tail cast on. I'm holding the 2 ends of my yarn down here, and then I'm separating the top, separating the 2 yarns between with my index finger and my thumb. And you're going to go in between your needle tips and hang the yarn on the bottom needle. And you want to sandwich that yarn between your needle tips. So I'm going to kind of hold it together like that. The sequence that I'm going to repeat is that the bottom yarn, the one that's on my thumb, wraps the top needle, and then the index finger yarn, which I'm going to call the top yarn, wraps the bottom needle. So I've got a loop there on my bottom needle, which means I need a loop on my top needle. So I'm going to use the bottom yarn, come behind the needle tips, over the top, and then in between the needles. So I wrapped around the top needle. Now I've got one on each. The top yarn comes underneath and in between the needles to the back. The bottom yarn comes up, around, in between the needles. So now I've got 2 on each, and I'm going to repeat that same process. So I'm going to come underneath and in between, from underneath, over the top, and in between. Underneath, in between, behind, over the top, and in between. So I've got 4 on each needle now. I'm going to repeat that process over and over until I have as many stitches as I need. So underneath, in between, over the top, in between, underneath, in between, over the top, in between. So that's what the Magic Cast On is going to look like. You've got both needles wrapped around with yarn. The way you would knit off of this now is I'm going to turn my work around. So I'm going to flip it like so. So to knit off of this, I'm going to take the tail end of my yarn and I'm going to hold it out here to the left so it's out of my way. And I've got my working yarn right here coming off to the right. I'm going to slide the bottom needle out so that those stitches are going to be resting on the cable. I'm going to bring that needle tip around and I'm going to use it to knit off of the top. So it's just like it's just as if you're doing magic loop any other way, but your needles are going to be, your needle tips are going to be right next to each other. So I'm just going to knit across this row. And I'm just ignoring those stitches that are on the cable underneath because we're not even working with them right now, so we don't have to worry about them. So here you can see I've started with a new cast on. I've done it the same exact way as before, but I'm going to show you how to knit off of this cast on, this time using 2 circular needles. So you can see I've got 2 sets of circulars. I've just held one tip of each out to the left to do my cast on. The other 2 needle tips from those needles are hanging out back here. So what I'm going to do is the same kind of process as we did for the magic loop. I'm going to flip my work over. I'm going to hold my tail, find my tail, hold it out to the left so it's out of the way. Working yarn's on the right. I'm going to slide the bottom needle out and let those stitches rest on the cable. And then I'm going to find the other end of this needle on the top, which is this one over here. And then using the same circular needle so you can see it's attached. When you're knitting 2 circular needles, you always want to make sure that you're knitting with the same one that's attached to. So I'm going to use that same needle and I'm just going to knit across these stitches on the top. So here you can see I've come to the end of that first needle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my work over. I'm going to pull this bottom needle out. I'm going to slide the top one to the needle tip. Then you have to find the other end of this needle. So whichever one's attached, that one right there. And then would do the same thing. Knit across that needle, flip it around, readjust it, and then just keep going that way. And that's how you would knit off of the magic cast on 2 circular needles. So last but not least, I'm going to show you how you would do the Judy's Magic Cast On over double pointed needles, which is not my favorite method, but I know there's some of you out there that probably want to learn how to do it on double pointed anyway, so I'm going to show you. So here I've just held 2 double pointed needles together. I've done the cast on the exact same way. So the way I knit off of this is the same way. Hold your tail out to the left so it's out of the way, and I'm going to use another double pointed needle, and I'm going to knit across the top, and it's going to be a little awkward and it's going to feel kind of tight because you don't have a lot of wiggle room in between these needles, but it'll work. Just takes a little bit of fiddling around, and it might also help if you pull the bottom needle so the stitches are sitting more in the center. You run less of a risk of the stitches falling off of the bottom needle. So I'm just knitting across the first double pointed, the one on the top, and like I said, it is a little tight and it might feel a little awkward, but the cast on row is always the hardest of any project, regardless of the cast on that you use. It's usually the hardest part, but it'll get easier once you have a little bit more fabric in between your needles. So I'm just gonna knit across this top double pointed. And then once you've come and you've knit all the way across the top one, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to use the same needle tip for now, or the same extra needle, and I'm going to knit across the bottom. Another thing I forgot to mention is that the stitches on the second needle that you do are going to be twisted. As you can see, they're sitting backwards on the needle, so you might have to knit through the back loop of those stitches in the back, and that's normal just from the way that you wrap your needle. So you might have to knit these stitches through the back loop just so that they don't get twisted. So I like to knit that first row with just the 2 needles and then my spare one, and then after that is when I'll divide it onto either 3 or 4 needles depending on how you like to use your double pointeds. You can slip like half of these onto a spare needle like that and knit off of 3 needles, and that will give you a little bit more room to knit from, and then take another needle and then just start knitting regularly as you would with the double pointeds. But you can see right there that it looks just like a row of knitting, and it should be pretty invisible. If it's a little loose, you might want to start over and try it again, but with this method I always seem to get a pretty decent line of stitches nice and straight, so that's how you would do it on double pointed needles. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more videos from me, you can hit the subscribe button, and there's going to be a little annotation at the end where you can do it there too. This was a requested video from our Facebook page, so if you have any ideas for future How To Monday videos, you can leave a comment below and let me know what you want to see. You can like Anna Kappa Fine Yarns on Facebook, you can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, you can read our blog. We're all over the place, so links for all those things will be down below. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye!